this will be the last Andrew here for a while because Steve is doing this episode. This is one of the Patreon episodes that was live a while ago, and as we've said, we are releasing them on the main feed pretty much on a one-for-one basis. So one in on Patreon, one out on the main feed. This is one recorded a while ago. Hope you enjoy it and get some tactical tips about how to make your guild do better. If you like this, want to help out on Patreon for about the price of a expensive, overpriced coffee, you can get an expensive, overpriced podcast. So there you go. Anyway, enough of me. Now for more Steve.
Okay, good evening, good morning, good afternoon. Welcome to Singled Out. This is the latest in the series of the guilds in 30-ish minutes. We might go over on this one because it's a guild I've got quite a lot to say about, and it's a guild my returning guest, the wonderful Paul Edek Korpal. Say hello.
Hi, great to be back.
Is also joining us to talk about, and we're going to talk about the team that we both played at the most recent WTC, which is now a couple of years ago, but which is Alchemists. I think you and I might be the only players to have played both Brewers and Alchemists at WTCs as well.
Oh, is that true?
Yeah, I played Brewers at my first WTC.
Yeah, I did play them for my first WTC and then swapped to Alchemist, yeah.
So tell us, like, what attracted you? Because I came to Alchemist originally because when I first started playing Guild Ball, Charles Narsa told me what a good game it was, and I couldn't work out what to choose, so I just asked my wife to choose something, and she bought me Smoke, and that's why I play Alchemists. So, but you obviously made a more conscious decision to move to them. So what attracted you?
Okay, so I wanted a second guild after Brewers, and it was one of the guilds nobody picked in our local gaming group. And the reason I picked them at that time have changed a lot because, it's Alchemist and they change with every edition massively. I started playing them when Midas had Replication, and you could go with the insane unmasking Midas. Unmasking on Momentous on third column, I believe, but I might be wrong about that one. That was stupid. Capitalist ass. Yeah, it was a lot of fun, but thankfully it's gone. But I'm really happy with how the guild is working right now.
Yeah, I think they're a really interesting guild, I think. So they're obviously at the moment in a very good place in terms of their sort of power level. They are widely recognised as one of the stronger, if not the strongest. Maybe I think Steeljaw probably still trumps them, but one of the stronger guilds in the game. And I guess the main thing for me is, as a guild, they're incredibly versatile. Like, you have a lot of flexibility and a lot of different things that you can do because you have these sort of, they are very football-y, but you can put out a lot of damage with the right setup because you have all of the conditions and you have some quite heavy damage dealers in there, but you also have the option of like a lot of control and range control elements. So you can really flex with them. I don't know how you find it, but I get asked quite a lot about, like, what's your plan with Alchemists? And I feel like almost more than any other guild in the game, they can play the board state. Like, you can really react to what's going on with them and change what you're doing.
Yeah, that's true. They have the full package, to be honest, as I said. My favorite way to play them is to play an all-out goal scoring Midas team. Like 4 or 5 strikers and some additional model. But to be honest, playing Smoke for the slower condition game, like a big control game, is also great. And Selma also brings some interesting stuff. Like, he is a super soul captain just as Midas, but he in a very different way. So there's all three captains are viable and they play kind of differently, even though everyone is a decent goal scorer if you need him to be. But yeah, Also, so they are very versatile, and yeah.
They're very efficient as well, aren't they? Because one of the key things they have is they can pull conditions off themselves or off other models, enemy or friendly models, to gain sort of movement bonuses or tack bonuses or just essentially free influence. And so they can. So while you've got a lot of models who might have things like three influence cap, or like you can get a lot done. So one of the benefits is if you talk about that sort of normal, the common Midas team, but you can quite often full stack 4 models in your team.
Yeah, that's true. There's quite a few models that are influence T3. It's Crucible, Virtual, Veteran Catalyst, but you don't feel like they're hampered in any way because of that. They get free stuff or extremely efficient with those influence, so that's not a problem at all. Also, the picking conditions for bonuses is a great mechanic. I love it. I think it's one of the best changes in Guild Ball within a guild. Also, it's a very cool mechanic because I've never heard people say it's not an unfair mechanic. I think people mostly enjoy playing against Alchemists. It seems like a fair game. Even though they are very strong guild, it feels like you never feel like you have no outs when playing against Alchemists.
Yeah, I think I think that there's maybe some, when we talk about Soma, there's something in some in the wording of that is a little bit unclear sometimes. Yeah. Like that can be fiddly, but in the main, I think the condition pool mechanic as a thing is pretty clean, it's pretty clear, and it's okay. I think also, a tip for people playing against Alchemists, and we were talking about this the other night, weren't we? Is if you're worried about the condition thing, just knock them down, because they have to clear conditions. Like they really don't like being knocked down, especially if they want to have conditions on themselves or they're looking to pull conditions from other models. So they're a weird guild, I guess, in the sense of their weaknesses are they're really good at pulling burning and poison. Like there's not much point in ever trying to burn or poison Alchemists, but they actually don't have any way of clearing things, any other condition clearing for like snared or knockdown or bleed. So they're quite vulnerable to the conditions that they don't want to play with. They don't have anything really like, they don't have any close control in the guild, so they're a bit vulnerable to sort of kick pressure stuff as well. Like their anti-kick pressure tends to come from having good tackles and things like unpredictable movement and stuff like that. But they don't actually have any really hard ball control mechanisms, and they're a bit squishy. Like they're sort of average to below average stats.
Yeah, that's true. Even the bulkiest models are both catalysts, and they can go down really fast if they're focused on.
They've got no like their defensive tech tends to be sort of auras, and you take conditions or you take a bit of condition damage or something, so it's either you come within 2 inches of them and get burning or poison or some combo of that, or the captains often have unpredictable movement, but they don't have any really hard defensive tech like fear, or Compound has resilience, but he's kind of a crossover model, and we can talk about him in a bit. He's very situational, but they don't have like tough hide or fear or anything like that.
Also females are below the like standard bulkiness for their defensive stats. Like Crucible is 4 and 14 HP. Which tends to be a bit more when you have no armor. And Virtual is the same with 11 HP at 5-0.
Yeah, and even Veteran Catalyst, who's a lot of boxes, is defense 2-1. That's like not and does a bit of damage to you. But like, so yeah, if you get into you don't really want to get into a scrum with them. And also the other thing is quite often you might be chipping away at your own models a little bit to put conditions on them. So or if they, like Venom or Original Catalyst obviously come with their own conditions, but sometimes you'll want to condition your own models in order to give you.
Yeah, because you need the condition in the exact place at the exact time to trigger all your additional stuff. Yeah.
And then in terms of gameplay, I mean, my view is like, well, this probably comes into the captain's bit, but they're very flexible. Like they can, as you say, you can play the All Strikers Midas team, 3-0 team, or you can play pretty grindy sort of 2-1, 4-1 sort of smoke teams, or even Soma can play that way. So they are very flexible. I usually find you're in sort of 2-2 with them you're either up or down from 2-2. So I think of them as a 2-2 guild, and they flex in different ways depending on who the captain is. So
Yeah,
like
I think that's fair to say. Yeah.
yeah, I think of like Solmer, I think of as the most pure 2-2 captain. Midas is like a 2-2 flex up to 3-0, and Smoke is a 2-2 flex down to 2-1. Unless you take a very specific Smoke build, which we can talk about in a bit.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's fair to say. You can always end up with Midas winning for one, one for to be exact, because Veteran Catalyst, if he is efficiently, can get you the takeouts, but it needs a lot of setup, and the stars have to align a bit to get that.
Yeah.
But it's doable, yeah.
And they're also weirdly for a football e guild, a big advantage they have is they don't actually mind if the game drags on a bit, because usually while they won't necessarily have a lot of damage dealers, like there's quite a lot of players that can do a little bit of chip damage and then conditions themselves do quite a bit of chip damage. So you actually can, I mean, you're not going to do that against say farmers or something like that, but against averagely statted guilds, if the game, usually football teams don't really want a game against butchers to go to like 3 or 4 turns, but actually alchemists, they don't want it, but they're okay with it because a lot of the models will then be on sort of half health.
Yeah, that's true. I noticed that when you play Midas, you tend to even accidentally take your enemy models down to, like, as I say, half of their HP. I had a few games against Union and Butchers or Cooks that I got some takeouts, even though I wasn't really trying to get them.
Yeah, you sort of have the accidental takeouts because models have conditions put on them.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the sort of gist of Alchemists. Should we talk a little bit about the captains? Like, let's talk about, because they really set the playstyle. So let's talk about Midas first of all, because I think you said he's your preferred choice, and he's probably the most common Alchemist captain and one of the strongest captains in the game.
Yeah, it's true. I started playing Midas in Season 4, even in his first iterations, where Lure of Gold was worse, and his legendary, the whole card was basically worse, because I was enjoying a goal-scoring team. Right now, you have a great kicking captain in Midas, in the sense that you can kick with any of the strikers you take with Midas. Midas will just pull other models up, and you get 2 or 3 models engaging the enemy team turn 1, which is a lot of pressure, and it's difficult to keep the ball safe against that. So you mostly prefer to take strikers with Midas as some tech pieces or some support. You're looking, as I said, for at least 2 goals, and most of the games will go rather quickly.
Yeah, I think Midas gives you, like, as you say, he gives you a really strong kicking game, because you can usually, you probably don't get it, but you can threaten to engage with 3 of your models on the kick. But a combination of, we'll probably have to talk specifically about Kami, but a combination of, like, the model you kick with, a model Midas lures, and then Kami. But then he himself is basically, he's just an incredibly, his main thing, he can move your players around. It's really useful. He's got Lure of Gold, which is one you basically can make people jog towards not directly towards him, which is either great for moving your models into position or actually pulling your models back if they get into trouble. So he gives you, and I think it's worth pointing out that Alchemists, the only movement tricks they really have are on the captains. They don't have any models that can manipulate other models' movement in the team, and they don't have any movement buffs. They don't, like Cinnamon or something like that, who just gives everyone +2 speed. They don't have that. But other than that, Midas is basically incredibly direct. He's just a really good striker. He's got where they go. He's got a tackle on 1 hit.
Also, he's quite good at pushing people off the pitch with his momentous push dodge on second. So you tend to get a takeout that way with Midas from time to time, but also because he has unpredictable movement, it's not as easy to push him off the pitch.
He can do various other things. I mean, the main thing is I often find you sort of set up some models with him on turn 1. Weirdly, it's positionally a little bit like Shaft in Minors. You kind of get him into the middle of the pitch for turn 2, and then you're like, okay, as long as I'm sort of around about the halfway line, slightly behind the halfway line, I can threaten to go and get the ball off someone, score a goal, do something like that on turn 2. But obviously what you can also do is just walk up and hit models. Like if you get into a situation where you get a crowd out or two, you can just hit one model repeatedly and lure of gold loads of your own models to engage them.
Yeah, I did that from time to time, yeah. Because if you lure a few models in to help you be at the model, you start to get the momentous 2 damage on 4th column.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So he can flex a bit, and I think, but he's primarily a football-focused model. You really want to get the ball with him. He can threat a really long way, and he's really hard to pin down because he has basically a double push dodge on 2 hits. Because
also he's quite cool because he doesn't need 6 influence all that often.
Yeah,
he works quite okay with 4 even. 5 is probably a safe one for him. Because at the very least you can go with Lure of Gold twice and where to go.
Yeah, exactly. And he is, I guess, moving on to the other captains, he is the least damagey captain. Like you're committing harder onto goals with Midas. So let's talk about Soma, because I think they overlay a bit more in terms of matchups, I think, with Midas. Soma's a funny mix, aren't they? Because they're both a control captain or like a buff captain and the mother of all super solos.
Yeah, that's true. Soma is quite interesting. He has also a similar tech to Midas that he can move friendly models up and make them more efficient at beating stuff up. There was some controversy with Selma when they were released initially. Yeah, right now they tend to play similar to Midas. You can probably swap them out depending on your play style. If you want to focus more on takeouts, you go with Selma. More on the goals, you go with Midas.
I think the slight difference is probably Soma's slightly better into some of the teams that Alchemists struggle with, like farmers and shepherds, because Soma gives you much more. Soma will take out pretty much anything when they turn into Numa, and you've got this. I think you've got quite a distinct 2 stages of play with them, don't you? So I think, firstly, obviously with Soma, what you want to do is take models that can apply burning, because your models get attack buff by pulling burning off enemy models, which is a slightly fiddly mechanic, but basically if the enemy model is burning, your model can pull it and gain extra attack. So you want models that self-apply burning, because realistically when Soma is in Soma mode, you're only really using Nitro, the movement, the dodge thing, because that costs, you have a 4 influence cap, that costs 3 influence. That's the character play you're using, because it's really good because you can dodge loads of models. So often you're looking at models like OCAT, like Kami, Mercury, these sort of models that self-apply burning.
Yeah, the Fire Brigade, yeah.
They get the most out of the attack buff. And I think also the other difference probably is, with Soma, you're ideally looking to set up like a 6-point legendary into Numa activation or back-to-back Numa activation. So you go like last with Numa and then go first with Numa, because basically Numa's great until someone gets hold of them, and then their 10 boxes can't heal, so they die pretty trivially. As long as it's not a 1-inch model engaging them. But so you have to be careful with Numa. But so I think you spend quite a lot of time pulling your own team around with Nitro, and then just getting yourself into the position to go, okay, now Numa's going to get me 6 points.
Yeah, I used to do a trick with Selma that I gave them 4 influence. You can go for a Nitro to move a few models around, but that also gives you the opportunity to use your legendary play, turn into Numa, charge someone, do some damage, dodge up, score a goal, and then you get Numa in a prime position for the next turn.
Yeah.
And also you manage to reposition a few models on your team.
You can usually, with 4 on Soma, get Numa into a model. It's the question is, you have to be, if you're going to do that trick where you Nitro Soma into position and then charge with Soma, you want to make sure that you're going first the next turn. That's the big one, isn't it? Because you're not going to get a lot of momentum out of that, because quite often with Numa, you're taking a knockdown on the charge, and then you're looking at hitting other results, because Numa is a bit vulnerable to counterattacks, because it's got 1-inch reach, no viable dodges.
Yeah, well, it can also be like a Hail Mary where you invest all of the influence into that goal, for example. Yeah. It's a massive goal range that way, to be honest. But it's quite a lot of influence just to show a goal. with a captain that's supposed to do all of damage. So it's an option, but it's not a common one.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is probably the 6 you're picking with Soma, because you're taking these fire-orientated models, isn't necessarily the strongest actual Alchemist pick of squaddies. So once Soma Numa is off the pitch, like usually if you lose your captain and Alchemist, you can actually crutch quite hard on your squaddies because they are very good, but you're usually running a slightly less cohesive team with Soma because you're wanting to make the most of that damage buff. So
that's true.
Should we talk about Smoke? Because Smoke is like 2 distinct ways of playing with Smoke, aren't there? And
yes, she is interesting. For the longest time, I couldn't click with her. I love the idea of her. I love the rules are great, but I did struggle a lot first with her. But right now, I pick her into specific matchups. She mostly plays into matchups that Midas doesn't do well into. So she's a tech captain, but she's very effective at that.
Yeah, and I think you can play sort of 2 distinct teams with her. We'll talk a bit more about squad selection in a minute, but like Smoke, she can play the football team. So before Midas got buffed, I used to just play a footballing Smoke team. So I play Vitriol and Crucible and OCAT because she threats a really long way. She can travel 20 inches. She can generate a lot of momentum with Watch the World Burn.
Yeah, sure, because her goal run is actually better than Midas's without engaging enemy models,
Yeah, for sure. And weirdly, she doesn't have a brilliant playbook, but she's really good at throwing models off the pitch because she can move. Basically, she has a move and a place, and she has a push and a double push. Like, if you get the hold of the right model, those models that are vulnerable to being thrown off the pitch, she's all Windle and the Bear and things like that. She'll happily do that. And then obviously she's really good into models with low defense and tough hide because like those models tend to be particularly like an 18 health tough hide model that's defense 3. So Corsair, for example, is a model that Smoke is very good at killing because she can just repeatedly infuse them with a reasonable sort of success rate. I guess the other thing in terms of like team structure then with Smoke is into certain matchups. So basically teams that want to engage you at range, so Steeljaw, Corsair, Ballista, Smoke's amazing into them because she's basically like you can play Smoke, Mercury, Original Calculus, Compound for countercharge, and another model to punch things, and just really, really stand off them. And your AoEs and damage is more influence efficient. You can usually generate more momentum because of Smoke, and you're hard to pin down, and you've got blind, and you've got countercharge. So she's a really good. Weirdly, she's also very good defensively into other defensive teams. Where it's weird is she's not as good as like Steeljaw's really good into anything, whereas Smoke is particularly defensive. Smoke is particularly good into defensive teams. It's not actually as good into offensive teams.
Yeah, that's true. And she's also quite good into a few goal-scoring captains, where playing a goal-scoring team against a goal-scoring team is kind of risky. If you get behind on a goal tempo, it's hard to come back, and Smoke can slow the game down. You can't have the same goal-scoring potential as with Midas, but you got additional tools to slow the opponent down. For example, Skada is a prime captain you want to take Smoke into, because if you take Smoke and Naja, I don't know how to say it in English to be honest, the snake, then it can be quite annoying for the hunters to get the ball from either Smoke or Snake.
Yeah, Naja and Smoke is sort of Scatha's worst nightmare, basically. I played that matchup a couple of times at WTC, and it was just, the ball goes on Naja on the corner, and they have to spend so much resource to get there, at which point you've like melted half their team.
Or you can even take Compound. So it's basically 3 models that hunters don't really want to get into, or have to invest a lot to engage them properly. Yeah.
So that's the sort of captains, and then we started talking about Naja and mascots. So I think in terms of mascots, my it seems to me that Flask is the generally picked mascot. Neither of them are bad, so there's nothing like you're not wrong to take another. Flask is the more common one because he gives you free stuff.
It's easier to use, yeah.
Yeah, and Najor is again like a tech mascot. Like if there's because 2-inch unpredictable movement, if you have something you want to deal with that, and also because hypnosis is really good against models with like low amounts of influence who do a lot of damage. So like Windle, the bear, again, those actually Veteran Catalyst, he's really good in the mirror against because he can make anything that makes it cost more to use those low defense, high output models. Is really good with Najor.
Yeah, that's true. Also, with her 2-inch melee, you can engage some 1-inch melee models and make them very inefficient. So Najor basically just wanders around, gets a situational attack here and there, or hypnosis. Whereas Flask mostly just gives other models free character plays, which is good, but there's not a lot of there's not a lot going around with him, but it's very efficient, yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly. And there's like one vaguely clever thing you can do with Flask, which isn't even that clever, is you just jam him into the opposition team and go kill him. Please kill Flask, because then he blows up and does a bunch of damage to people.
Yeah, I did have a few games where it was against Corsair, I believe. I jammed Flask into him and also blinded Corsair. And if Flask is in cover, which he probably is because of his smoke bomb, then Corsair is at -3 attack, and Flask is a free 2 model, so he needs to hit all 3 dice to do a non-momentous 1 into Flask. So he can you can jump up models with him, but that's probably the most creative stuff you'll do with him.
And so those are the sort of mascots, and then the squaddies. And I think this is one of Alchemist's biggest strengths, right? If you said their captains are good, they have a really deep roster of good squaddies. So I think if you take one thing from this podcast, there isn't really there aren't really bad Alchemist squaddies. You're not wrong for picking any particular combination of this. And I know you and I, when we've chatted before, have run very different teams to each other. But I guess the core bit, I guess, in Alchemists is usually the ball playing squaddies. So all of your squaddies have good kick stats pretty much universally, except maybe Compound and the mascots. But most Alchemists have good kick stats. But
even Catalyst is a 3-6 into kick.
Yeah, Catalyst is a 3. I beat world champion Will Weinfeld with an original Catalyst goal. 3-6 kick on a fighty model is good. Even Vet Cat's a 2-6, which isn't bad for a big one.
It used to be 1-4, I believe.
It was. When he had Old Witness Me back in the glory days. But I guess the main decision for the big section in this squaddies is these sort of footballer squaddies, isn't it? And by this we mean sort of Vitriol, Cami, Crucible, and Veteran Calculus.
Yeah.
And you're usually running at least 2 of them, right?
Yeah, that's true. Even Veteran Calculus, that's people mostly decide to not bring her into the roster. She has a few good matchups, but it's just a case of other models tend to be more useful or more often useful, but she is in no way a bad model. She has the best goal run from all the squaddies on her own. It's a 20-inch goal run, yeah? Because
20-inch. She has a 20-inch native goal threat, so she's the safest. Like if you want to score a really safe receive goal with Alchemist, Veteran Calculus is the model for that. Because she can sort of score from a really long way away while also doing a sort of drive-by sticky bomb onto people and slowing them down. And for me, the 2 of those that are probably actually almost auto-includes, unless I'm playing that defensive smoke team, are Crucible and Cami.
Yeah, that's true, because you have 2 good models for scoring goals and 2 good models for retrieving the ball. Crucible takes the ball from enemy models, and Cami takes the ball from the ground. It's really difficult to protect the ball against them, especially because Crucible works around close control. So, they are great. They are squishy, but that's like a theme for the guild.
Cami's probably less squishy because she's she has 1-inch reach and 5/0 12 boxes, but because she has a place,
Yeah.
She's usually, if you don't, she's in that camp of if models don't get taken out and if she gets to activate, she can usually get away.
Yeah, that's true.
And I guess the other thing with both of those models is they do both have momentous damage on their playbooks, not a lot of it, but they have weirdly good sort of counterattacks. Like, where Crucible's, like, it's often worth counterattacking Crucible even if she's not escaping, because actually 1 damage poison and burning as a counterattack is a real pain. And Cammy, the same thing. You might not get away with the counterattack, but you pop resilience off a model or something like that. So they can flex, they can do a little bit of chip damage, I guess, is the other thing with them. But yeah, mainly you're taking them for their sort of threat. And I think often I don't know about you, but I often find with Cammy on turn 1, what I'm looking to do is stand one of my own models with a condition 4 inches in front of Cammy, and then place Cammy onto that model and go and engage something late in the game, like late on turn 1.
It works the best with Veteran Catalyst because of the huge base.
Yeah.
But it works as well with Venom or Original Catalyst or Original Calculus.
Yeah, any of those models, Mercury even, but usually I usually find it's Venom or like Original Catalyst or something like that, just because you tend to not quite. It's always a feel bad to walk yourself into your own AOE. Like, you can do it with Original Calculus, but it feels like there must be a better use I could make of this.
Well,
it's not free, I guess. It doesn't feel. It's not free like it is with Venom or OCAT.
Yeah, but when you're, it is kind of free with Midas, because you can. Well, I think this smoke is the same, and somewhat you can walk like 2 or 3 models into the poison AOE, and you can fuel up Vitriol, you can fuel up Cammy, and possibly Crucible.
Yeah, that's true.
You need to activate in the right order so that you poison your own model and you get to clear the poison on turn 1. If you have to keep the poison on them for the end of the turn, it is a fuel build, yeah.
Yeah, but so there's but I think that's a big thing with those, and with Vitriol as well. This is the same, right? The big thing you want to do is, especially in early turns, is keep one of your own models with a condition within 4 inches of them, so that they can either get the free character play, get the free charge on Vitriol, get the free Great Balls of Fire on Crucible, or get the free place on Cammy. So that's the thing to just be aware of with those models. And then usually the later you go into the game, there are conditions sort of splashing about on opposition models. And it's often why I often use the Midas Legendary in like what might be quite a suboptimal way. I often end up hitting it just to put conditions onto 1 or 2 models sometimes. Like, so because you can often get a lot out of the Midas Legendary, but sometimes just getting 1 or 2 models with it so that you have those conditions in place at the end or at the start of a turn is absolutely worth it.
Yeah, because if you put the condition like early in the turn on an enemy model, they will probably get rid of it because it's minus the movement for burning, it's free damage from the turn, so they will probably clear that. But if you put on, I tend to use a legendary and pull the condition on the same activation.
Yeah.
Because they don't get a moment to react to that.
Yeah, that's and often you just use it to get the additional dodge on Midas. So those are the football players, and I think what you're mainly trying to do with them is just exert, as you usually have, if you have 2 or 3 of them, regardless of whether it's Smoke, Midas, or Sommer as the captain, you're 1 on each wing and 1 in the middle, trying to exert as much ball pressure as possible, with a view to occasionally just going in with Cammy or Crucible and making 3 or 4 attacks just for the momentum and a bit of chip damage. So then probably the sort of the most like usually that you almost always see one as a catalyst, because they're your main damage dealers essentially.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you probably will end up quite a lot of games without doing any takeouts, but you've got the threat of the takeout, and the opponent has to play around it. So even the psychological aspect is worth bringing one of them. And Original Catalyst is a good model to fuel up the strikers with his free burning.
Yeah, and both of them have access to knockdown on 2, which the only other models with knockdown are the captains, and it's usually on Numa's got it on 3, I think, but like Smoke and Midas both have it on 4 or 5.
Yeah.
Whereas an OCAT has the only momentous knockdown in the guild, so it's worth it even if you're not necessarily aiming to fight the opposition, but having a model with knockdown is really helpful. But they are the Veteran Catalyst especially is the sort of biggest source of damage in the faction that's not Numa.
Yeah,
So
Catalyst is the damage dealer. Veteran Catalyst is the damage dealer. Audio Catalyst can be another model to push any models of the pitch. With external combustion, I did get a noticeable amount of takeouts by pushing models of the pitch, even a few Colossus. Colossi?
yeah, OCAT is really good at ringing out models, and actually OCAT combines really well with other models to get ring outs as well from a surprisingly long distance, because you can often, with the right setup, easily push a model 6 inches with OCAT, and then even if it wasn't near the edge of the pitch, it is now, and Soma or smoke can throw it off. So I think the big thing to be aware with both of them, which we touched on, is they are incredibly squishy. Like, especially Vetcat. Like, if like Gutter or Cena or anything like a Fangtooth gets into Vetcat, I've played into Alchemists with Union, and I got Fangtooth into Vetcat and basically killed Midas, Vetcat, another squaddy, and a mascot just off unmaskings on Vetcat. Because
he is a great target for triggering playbooks, character placement playbooks.
Yeah, so anything like that, I think, is you have to be so I often find I'm very conservative with Vetcat. Like, he's probably the model I've dumped all their influence on more than any other model in the game. Like, because it's often you just want the 3 influence on Vetcat or 2 influence on Vetcat just to make sure that people can't just run into your team and do whatever they want. But often you never want to overextend them unless it's going to win you the game.
Yeah.
And then the other sort of group of squaddies, I guess, are like the batteries / tech pieces, of which there are many. And I think it's fair to say usually what you'd see in an Alchemist lineup is, 2 of the strikers, a catalyst, and then one of these guys.
Yeah, that's probably a reasonable roster. Yeah. Yeah. So the models are probably like original calculus.
Yeah.
Mercury and Venom and Compound, and there's another bad model between them.
They're all good. They all do very different things. I guess that's the thing, isn't it?
Yeah, that's true. Well, Compound is probably the most techy of them all, I would say. You tend to bring him all against either very defensive teams, so you are also defensive, let's say with Smoke, or against goal-scoring teams to make their goal runs less efficient with Perfect Order. Because Compound is very happy holding the whole game without any influence allocated whatsoever. And he gives out too, so that's very good. Great.
So Calculus is, she can throw a poison AoE, which is great. She can do it for free. Well, she can pull a condition to throw an AoE or make a character plays, and she has blind, which is massive. So Calculus is particularly one are you receiving against a super solo, or is there a model that really doesn't like being blind that you're playing against Blackheart, Corsair, those sort of models. But she feels, I guess the difference between her, she's very similar to Hemlock, but I think the big difference between Calculus and Hemlock is Calculus is actually a bit more durable, because often the trap of blind is often you walk up to 6 inches of someone, blind them, and then they go, especially Hemlock, you walk up, you blind Herder with Hemlock, and Herder goes, cool, I'm just going to kill you now.
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
Whether it's actually being 14 boxes and 4-1 is a bit more durable than a lot of the other sort of blind bots in the game. Mercury's a funny one. Mercury's the one I like the most but use the least. He has a fire AoE that's really good for slowing people down. He can do a bit of damage. He has got momentous damage on his playbook at range, but it tends to be but it's 2 damage at range. So if you put a lot of influence on Mercury, usually you'll get 8 damage out of it, which is okay and can be really good. But Alchemists don't really wrap. To get Mercury to do, I've heard people say about wrap damage on it, and you can do it in Soma, but it's still not ideal. The thing I find really useful is his 2-inch burning aura, because you can almost use him as another fire AoE to stop the opposition getting to the ball if you don't want them.
Yeah, he can also be a specific model to kill the ball on, because a few models will simply not be able to engage him because they will lose the movement from burning before engaging him.
Yeah.
So it is a small trick, but it tends to happen. I also find that he is a good model to exploit models like Colossus, like low diff models that you can spam Fireball on to kill more important models.
Yeah, the sort of thing of hitting Vet Fangtooth to actually hit Brisket.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so you can definitely do that. And again, it might be a playstyle thing. Is I tend to only really use him in a defensive smoke team. But I think that is a playstyle issue for me. I don't think it's necessary. I don't think anyone's wrong, I guess, to take him again. And then the one I use more often that a lot of other people don't is Venom, and I basically take Venom in a 6, usually because I'm taking Vet Cat, so I want a model that brings their own condition at the start of the game, and Venom will often just spend the game giving a condition to my team, but he can, in the right situation, do a lot of damage by Alchemist standards.
Yeah, that's true. Also, he's kind of a tank.
Yeah.
Because he can be defense 4, armor 2. That's not easy to get through. But yeah,
he can go Blacksmith's Apprentice and Sentinel. Like standing Venom in cover with poison on him is always like, and sort of making your opponent try and swamp him is quite good, because then often you can hit his heroic as well.
Yeah,
he tandems.
You're going on.
I was just saying he tandems really well with Vet Cat, because Vet Cat often, puts poison onto models and knocks them down, and then Venom's suddenly like, okay,
he's also very good with smoke, because he is another model that does damage without rolling dice, without influence. You tend to be even more efficient with your damage dealing in smoke list. Yeah.
I guess the flip side with Venom is quite often when he doesn't have his condition on him, he's real squishy, because actually he's 13 health naturally. He's usually taken some poison damage. So quite often Venom will be wandering around at some stage in his activation in your turn. Venom will probably be 4-1 on about 10, 11 health. Which is,
that's true.
So it's a funny one, because he flips from being like, oh, Venom's totally safe, to being like, oh, Venom's in so much trouble.
Yeah.
So it's
that's true. He's also the model with the most text on the back of his card, I believe. He has 5 rules on the back.
He does have a lot, doesn't he?
Yeah. That's true. He's a very cool model. He is rather fast because he's a 6 jump model, another 3/6 kick, so he can collect the ball on the receive and set up with a condition good place. Yeah, you cannot go wrong with taking Venom.
Yeah. And then I guess just to say with that, that smoke 6, I don't think I can't remember which you went into, but is usually the defensive smoke 6 is usually smoke, a mascot, original calculus, Mercury compound, and probably
Kami.
a catalyst. Yeah, or Kami or a catalyst.
Yeah.
And it's just and you're just, so it's quite different to the other teams we've talked about with lots of strikers in it.
Yeah.
So what would you say? What do they like playing into, and what do they not like playing into? What do you think? What do you hate seeing across the table?
I hate seeing when I'm playing my goal scoring team. I hate to see another goal scoring team. Because if someone's on the defense, then he's probably on his side of the pitch with the ball kind of safe. In the spot where it's not a threat for my goal, but I can probably go and get the ball. The most difficult games for me are when the opponent is also going for goals and it's a race. It can get quite difficult quite quickly. And with Smoke, people tend to say that she's very good into blacksmiths, but that's not a very easy matchup, to be honest.
I don't find that easy for Smoke. Now, I think it used to be, but then the changes to Culverin and Cutlass and to Burnish just give them so much condition clearing.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know who doesn't. You probably play more Smoke than me, so you can take that one.
Yeah, Farmers is the one I don't like seeing.
Oh yeah.
With Soma is okay into them. Soma, this is probably the big overlay. Like, I think if Alks could take all 3 captains in their team, they'd be the best guild in the game. Like if you could have if you had a squad with 3 captains.
Yeah.
Then Alks could cover off almost all of their not so fun matchups, but usually there's a couple in there that you don't quite have the tools for. But Farmers, because a combination of massive health pools, the bastard chicken, and sort of Harrow as well, do make things a bit awkward for Alchemists.
Yeah, I do find that into Farmers you just go with -5 strikers.
I agree. Yeah. I think you
It's
tend to
not
go
an
for
easy game, but it's probably there's no way you're chipping down those 20 HP models.
Yeah, you're not fighting them. You're not fighting them. Like, that's it.
Yeah, they will kill your team twice before you kill one model.
Yeah, yeah. Is there any particular what's your favorite thing you like doing with them? Fun tips and tricks. Like, what do you like? What's made you feel really good when you're playing Alchemist and be like, that was cool?
Well, raw enthusiasm with a striker. If you get raw enthusiasm on your hand, you can easily overextend a striker turn one. Because, for example, a Kami, let's say, if they kill her, she gets back on the pitch with a 7-inch movement, and she's still threatening the ball probably. And if they don't take her out, then she will probably just escape and possibly make the ball live. That's a simple trick, but it's quite effective and quite fun.
Similarly, I like the tough hide card for that reason. Like, it's more situational, but like suddenly being like, yeah, you've now got to kill tough hide vitriol.
Okay, I don't like the minus influence cards, to be honest.
That's the tricky one. I've usually scored a goal by that point, so I'm sort of like, that's how I make it acceptable to myself. But I think it's true. I think basically things that allow you to get unexpected activations out of your strikers are good.
Yeah, that's true. Also, plus the movement card is quite cool, because if you got a movement 9, 11, Kami or Vitriol,
yeah,
get back the bit, that's kind of fun.
The one I quite like doing is just moving, like, is either with Soma or with Midas. It's just blinding something with Calculus and then moving Calculus backwards.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
It's like I mean, the really fun one with original Calculus is if you ever play the Mirror, which I have done in the Mirror match, is blinding original Catalyst with his own burning with original Calculus. That's a lot of fun. It's like, oh yeah, now you're -4 attack. Like,
yeah, well, when you're playing against Hunters or Falconers, Egret is basically shooting free influence into you.
Yeah.
You need to change your mindset when you're playing Alchemist, because like those burning and poison is basically free stuff. So if you
the only thing with that, I think, is you have to remember, like, it's just making sure you remember what balance of your models can pull conditions, because while you can do it, you can easily end up taking you can easily end up taking a team where actually only one model can pull burning or poison.
Yeah,
like it's not common, but it's not uncommon. So being like, I can just take this unlimited amount of poison or burning, it's like you probably want it on like 2 models, but like probably not more than that necessarily.
Yeah, sure. Well, to be honest, I'm thinking my favorite stuff has to be like pushing off most of the pitch with Odro Catalyst. When I was starting Alchemist, I played him basically every match. Because with external combustion, he can be probably like 8, 9, 10 inches off the edge of the pitch.
Yeah.
Because you have 1 inch of engagement, the animal base, and 4 inches to move them off the pitch, or even a rapid is 5 inches with the momentous push on 1. That was always a lot of fun. And
Smoke's good for that as well. I like Smoke for like models coming back on the pitch, like Smoke suddenly going, oh yeah, I'm going to use my playbook, which is all momentous pushes, and now flinging off the other edge. The other one for models coming back on with Smoke is things like someone like Corsair coming back on the pitch on 9 health, and Smoke just going, yeah, you're dead. Like, I'm just going to, like, if you've got the legendary up your sleeve, it's just going up to them and being like, here's some poison, now you're dead. Like,
and with Veteran Catalyst setting up like a 2 or 3 takeout activation, it's very unfun for the opponent always. But if you pull them off, it feels very good. Yeah.
The other little janky one I quite like is with Kami. If you tackle the ball but you can't get it anywhere, is tackling the ball off someone and basically just kicking the ball so it's in base with you, and then killing it. And then so if you get a tackle where you're like, I'm not in a position, like, I can't get a goal shot, I can't pass to anyone, I can't get out, like, just kicking the ball when it's in base contact with you and then doing kill the ball is quite like a fun little trick.
Yeah, you can also try to set up Kami in 6 inches from the goal. If you can like collect the ball, you can kill the ball, try to make a kick so it lands near Kami, and then shoot a goal. It's not likely, but it is possible.
Okay, Yeah. Okay, I think that's a podcast. I think that's sort of Alks in 45 minutes. That's reasonable, listener. Like, we could have gone on about this for hours. Like, I could have. We haven't even talked about, like, Crucible's momentum draining aura and like how fun that is. But like, there's a lot. So there's a lot in Alchemists, but hopefully that gives you a bit of a snapshot of them, of why they are obviously a fun guild. I'm not going to ask the usual question, ask about whether they're fun or not, because I really like them. And I'd hope the listener knows that already. But again, I just want to say thank you again, Edek. Thanks for joining us again.
Yeah, it was really fun to do again. Yeah.
Yeah, we may do a blast from the past and talk about brewers at some point. Brilliant.
Yeah, to be honest, it was quite an identity crisis going from Brewers to Alchemists season 4.
Probably why you and I both talked a lot about pushing models off the pitch, having gone from like, oh yeah, that's the same, that's in both teams. Okay, so this has been Singled Out, a gaming podcast talking about Guild Ball, and look forward to seeing you on the next one.
Yeah, thanks.
Cool.
Cheers.